We now have audio in our game. However, that audio plays automatically. We want to be able to play audio at any moment we want, and we'll have to use scripting to do that. Let's start using a script that already exists, the script that allows us to have footstep sounds playing as we walk. That script exists under the FPS controller. We see a first-person controller script attached to that, and that is the script that allows us to move around, change our walk speed, our run speed, and if you scroll down to the bottom, you'll see footstep sounds. You may have to expand it if it's not currently expanded. And when you expand it, you should see a few footstep sounds there as element 0 and element 1, and also a size. So this is how many footstep sounds do you have. If you were to change this to a 3, you would see a new element appear because footstep sounds is an array or a group of footsteps. And you can set the size of that array right there. Currently there's only 2 footstep sounds, and you may have noticed as you play the game you hear these 2 footstep sounds alternating. There's also a jump sound and a land sound here. Where are these sounds in the project file? If I click on footstep 01, it will show me in the project window where that's at. You can see that it is part of the standard assets specifically for a first-person character, and it's in its own audio folder. Not the audio folder that we created for our own audio files inside of assets, but in the audio file for the first-person character. You could change those footstep sounds. You could drag in different footstep sounds if you have them. And you may have also heard every time we play the game a big thud at the beginning. That is our land sound. So unfortunately there's no volume property here. What I want to do is be able to turn the volume down to make sure it's balanced well with our background music and our ambiance. When you run the game now, the footstep sounds are just much louder than I want them to be. So where can we change the volume if it's not in the properties? Well, it must be hard-coded into the first-person controller script. Actually, you could open the audio source component of the FPS controller, and there is a volume property that you can change for the audio source. And this is the audio source that is used for the footsteps and the jump and the landing. So this is one way you could do it without coding. So we're going to open that script with a little gearbox and say Edit Script. The script opened in Sublime Text. You can see the name firstpersoncontroller.cs. If you hover over that, it shows you where that's saved in your project folders. And like almost all scripts, it will always have the class name, which is right there, which matches the file name. And you'll see a lot of properties. In this case, the text in white are your variable names. And we can see some variables down here that relate to audio. We see m_footstep sounds. That is this footstep sounds here. It says it's an array of footstep sounds. Remember, that is a group of footstep sounds. And it says here it will be randomly selected from. When it comes to grab a footstep sound, it randomly picks one of those 2. We also have m_jump sound and m_land sound. If you scroll down a little bit, you have more of these variables, and you have this one called m_audio source, and that is of type audio source. So these are the variables, but we still need to find where these variables are being set and used. I'm going to press Ctrl F to bring up the Find window and search for footstep. If I click Find, there's an instance of it where we call a method named playFootstepAudio, and actually the name of that method is right there. So when this line of code runs, that's called the function call, it jumps into here and runs all the code in here. That definitely sounds like the place we want to be, and we have some comments here to help us understand. It says pick and play a random footstep sound from the array. So it's going to randomly choose one of these, excluding the sound at index 0, which means this element 0 will not be included. So it's going to randomly choose one of the footstep sounds after that. And since there's only one, it will pick that one. But if there were more footstep sounds, it would randomly pick any of the others. So it comes up with a random number, and then it uses that number to determine which footstep sound to set for the audio source's clip. And then once the clip is set, it plays one shot, meaning instead of just using the .play method, which would have it play and possibly repeat multiple times, it just plays it one time. And then after it plays it, it swaps the clip that just played with the clip at position 0. So if it played footstep 2, and then after it's done it would swap those two, so footstep 2 would now be in position element 0. and the next time this code runs, it couldn't pick that same one again. So effectively, it's just causing this to alternate between the two footsteps constantly. I'm going to add this line of code. Take the audio source and set its volume to whatever you like, 0 being the lowest you can go and 1 being 100%. I'm going to go 0.1. We're going to bring down the volume quite a bit here. And hopefully this is it. If I press Ctrl S, go over to Unity, let's see if we get any errors. We did get an error down here at the bottom. We could click on our console and see that. It says a literal of type double cannot implicitly convert. Okay, so I've seen this error many times. It's one to be familiar with. The issue is that there's two types for decimal values, and here it must be expecting it to be a float value. If you look up the API, you would see that the volume, yes, has to be a float type variable. To indicate that it's a float variable, you need to add the F at the end. Quick, easy fix there. So that thud sound was still pretty loud, but as I start walking around, the sound of my footstep is much more quiet. So that wasn't too bad. However, do we really need to set the volume over and over and over every time this function runs? Or could we set it one time somewhere else? Well, we're using M audio source for more than one thing. If you look through the code some, you'll realize that you're also using it for the jump sound, the thud sound, for all the audio sources that relate to this script. So if you want to be able to control all those audio sources at once, then you could move this. If you need it to just apply to the footsteps, you would leave it here. But let's try moving it. I'm going to take this line of code, Control X to cut, and let's see where we might want to put this. Here's where I play the jump sound, so I could put it in there if I want to change just the volume for the jump sound. But I'm looking for probably where the M audio source is actually first defined, and that would probably be towards the top, possibly in the start method. Yes, we define a lot of our variables here. We declare them above, and then we initialize them with a value right when the game starts. And here you see the audio source. Yes, we did initialize that variable, and right underneath of it, I will paste our volume code. So we are setting the volume for that audio source, and that volume will never change after it starts. I'll press Ctrl S, make sure this still works. Hopefully we also hear that when we land at the very beginning, the volume of that is also turned down. Good. The thud was very quiet. I can hear that again when I jump and land. So every time I land, there's a nice quiet thud.